time for a game that we call, believe it or not, NFC East Edition. Lewis, we start with you. If I say Jalen Hurts is the quarterback with the most approved this season, believe it or not?
Yes and no. I do believe it from a personal sense, not from a team accomplishment sense, because he's already won a Super Bowl and almost won another. But I think there's just been so much talk surrounding Jalen and his inability to maybe play the game at a high level when you're talking about specific aspects of quarterbacking, like throwing the football in the middle of the field, working under center, executing play action on a consistent basis. I think he wants to prove something, and I think he is going through this year.
Probably do it without A.J. Brown. We'll see if they do indeed trade him off the beginning of June. Bart, let me come to you. If I said the Cowboys defense is going to be so improved, they'll make it back to the NFC Championship game for the first time in forever. Believe it or not?
I know we say this every year, Greeny, but believe it. I believe it. I tell you, Christian Parker has a lot of things to work with that's good. You talk about replacing Parsons with Rashawn Gary. You talk about Downs, Overshaw coming back, Kenny Clark. You talk about Quentin Williams. Believe it, Greeny.
Yeah. Christian Parker, the new defensive coordinator there in Dallas. All they have to do is get decent with that offense, and they could be special. Finally, Mike T, staying in the division, believe it or not, Jaxson Dart and the Giants are going to go from worst to first in the division this year.
They will be improved, and I think John Harbaugh is a consequential acquisition by the New York Giants, but this is a team that only won 7 games over the last 2 years, and while Jaxson Dart has shown flashes of ability, Greedy, as Hembo reminded me, he was hit 148 times in 14 games, and that is simply not sustainable in this day and age.
Absolutely. And that's why I brought it up with Troy yesterday. So we had Troy Aikman here yesterday for a half hour. It was a terrific sit down, and I was really able to go in depth with him on some things. And we talked about Jaxson Dart and his style of play. Here's what Troy said.
We had that discussion about him protecting himself, and within the first 5 plays, he just got absolutely blown up on the sidelines. He didn't get out of bounds. You know, when you're young, when you get into the league, you do have this mindset, and that's, you know, like Jim McMahon, I think that's part of what makes him him. Some of that bravado and toughness is how a lot of these quarterbacks are wired and how they gain their edge.
So we got a fine line that we have to walk there, right? Because I'm one of those who believes in the Giants. I know you talk about how few games they won the last 2 years. Last year in particular, they handed games away. Early in the season, they had the Denver game being the most obvious example, but there were so many games last year they not only could have won, but absolutely should have won. So you just flip a few of those on the margin, add some pieces, which they have, add an outstanding veteran coach, quarterback in his second year. Sounds a lot like New England from the year before. I'm not saying they're going to wind up in the Super Bowl, but I could see them taking a big jump. But this is the key, because Jaxson Dart is supposed to be representing Big Blue. He's got to stay out of the blue tent. How do you do that? Troy was just saying sometimes you can't really get it out of a guy.
Well, look, this is going to really be something that's really going to have to be driven from within Jaxson Dart and his ability to understand that, look, you have your own brand, you have your own style, and that has gotten you to this point. But look, there's a reason why we all love football. We love the team aspect of it. We love the camaraderie aspect of it. We love the fact that it is a dependent sport. Quarterback is a dependent position. His success is dependent upon him being on the field. He needs time on task, right?
Yeah.
He needs to develop a relationship now with another new offensive coordinator in Matt Nagy. If they want to accomplish all the big goals, which is winning the division, winning the conference, winning the Super Bowl, returning them to glory, he has to be on the field. So at some point, there is that fine line from saying, look, this is my own personal brand, but this is the brand the team needs me to really represent.
That's a great job by Hembo of illustrating the point I was making in my head with the exact numbers. They had 10-point leads in 5 different games they lost last year. You flip those around and everything looks vastly different. But let's talk about the young quarterback taking a beating.
And you talk about the Giants, they're swimming upstream, because you can argue that he's the newest quarterback, but you can also, if you're a ranking quarterback, you would say he was 4th. He's swimming upstream. In the division. So he has to understand how important and how vital he is. And I think the first thing that Harbaugh did to try and prove that to him was to go out and get Patrick Ricard, because he wants him to know that we're going to run the football. We're going to bring a tough brand of football. We're going to run the ball. That's why Greg Roman is there, to protect the young guy from himself. It's arrogance when you're that young, right? And you don't understand how important you are to the organization. He has to understand that, and Harbaugh is going to beat that message in his head. He had Lamar Jackson, and you saw Lamar start to look like he wants to slow down. You want to tell him, hey, man, it is a $500 million out here if you can play for 15 years. But you got to get there. And every young dude thinks that he's an alien and he's something that the league has never seen. Just ask Anthony Richardson. It's cost him his career and his opportunity to be a starter in this league, and it could happen to you if you miss too much time.
And Greeny, Bart will remember this, but when we had Mark Sanchez in his formative years, Rex Ryan actually brought in Joe Girardi, who at the time was the manager of the Yankees, to learn how to slide better. Like, to be able to protect yourself is part of playing the quarterback position. Know when to slide, know what to throw away. Remember, the second best thing that happens in a passing game is an incomplete pass. So Jaxson Dart has to take that step for the Giants to be able to compete meaningfully.
No question about it. I think he will. I'm a huge believer in his. If they get some of this stuff out of him, Bart looks a little skeptical.
Because he doubled down in some of his interviews. Sometimes you got to learn the hard way, Claude.
And hopefully he did. And hopefully Harbaugh is the right guy to turn it around. Are the NFL teams that have the hardest strength of schedules as this season begins? And the Chicago Bears are at the top, depending on how you look at it, the bottom of that list. The strength of schedule based, of course, off of opponents' winning percentage from last year. Bears have the toughest strength of schedule, which brings us to the game What Say Lou with Louis Riddick. So the Bears have the hardest schedule in the league. There have been a lot of reasons why people have suggested they might digress this year. So my question is, do you think they will go from winning the division to missing the playoffs? What say Lou?
No, I don't think they'll miss the playoffs, Greeny. I do think, obviously, the path to success is going to be harder. It's going to be about the defense. Look, Caleb will do his thing in the second year in Ben Johnson's offense. But defensively, they didn't do anything really to improve the front seven. And this is where they struggled. Pass rush win rate, pressure rate, both near the bottom of the league. Yards per carry, they gave up over 5 yards per carry last year. Defense has to stand up. I think that could be their Achilles heel. Offensively, though, I think they're going to level up. So I think it's going to cancel each other out, but I don't think they're going to win the division.
Greeny, they were plus 22 last year. Typically, that is very hard to repeat.
In turnover ratio.
In turnover margin. That is very hard to sustain. They may be a better team with a worse record.
So that brings us to the division in larger form. Because, Bart, you said something that really perked my ears up as we were talking about the NFC North this morning.
I believe this is the most competitive division in football. And I think the team that's going to really surprise a lot of people is the Minnesota Vikings. I think Kyler Murray, that addition right there. You talk about the Bears going, I've been that team that has won the division before, and then you go from being the hunters to being the hunted. I don't know if the Bears can sustain. You got the most talented, and arguably I think at the end of this season, I think we may say that Kyler Murray is the most talented quarterback within that division. You pair here with Kevin O'Connell with the weapons that he has, a tight end at T.J. Hawkinson, you have Jefferson, you have Addison, then they go out and get a gritty guy like Jawan Jennings. I think the sky's the limit for Kyler Murray. When you're doing all that, you're going to have little Mandalorian running around here for 25 seconds with guys that's one-on-one down the field.
That's fascinating to me. I haven't had anyone else say that. People have speculated about, maybe he'll play well, maybe he has a resurgence, a rebirth. It's an interesting quarterback room. I haven't heard anyone say they think he's going to be that level of good. Do you?
Yeah, I believe it. Look, I said initially, remember, when they were flirting around with this possibility of signing him, that if they sign him, this isn't a competition. It's over for J.J. McCarthy. Yeah. Not necessarily because, maybe they have thrown in the towel, but I think Kyler Murray's that good. And when Kevin McCarthy comes out, and rather Kevin O'Connell comes out and says, when you watch the tape, his skill set does fit what I do. Some people say, no, it doesn't. He says it does. It's in his best interest to make this work out in a big way. I think this could supercharge that offense.
I'm thinking back to the draft of the year before.
Yeah.
And you were saying when they took all the quarterbacks and they wound up with McCarthy.
Yeah.
You were the one telling me whoever winds up in Minnesota is the one winding up in the best place.
Absolutely.
Well, it's taken 2 years, but now it's Kyler Murray who's wound up in Minnesota.
It sure has. Look, between Kevin O'Connell and Josh McCown, we've talked about them extensively on this show. I think those two guys are superstars. I think Josh is going to be a head coach here very soon. So I still think it's the best situation for any quarterback to go into, young or old.
Greeny, what's interesting about Kyler Murray, he was a great baseball and football player. For the first time in his career, he felt his athletic mortality. Typically, when someone's that talented, still in the prime of his career, whatever he has, we're going to get the best of it. To Lou's point, he's in an ideal situation. And when we're talking about a redemptive story this season, it very likely could be Kyler Murray.
All right, so it's fascinating because you see the Bears
Put the
and the Packers
PlayStation up, Greeny. Tell them no PlayStation, no Call of Duty. Strictly business.
That's always been the problem. And whether it's been, there's obviously all that talk about the video games and stuff, but the reality is he's had fast starts.
Yeah.
He gets off to very fast starts in seasons, but maybe it's because he wears down his size, whatever the case may be. He doesn't always finish strong. If he does, they could have something special there.
There's no question about that. Look, it's never been about Kyler's athletic ability. It's always been about the football character part of it. Correct. How much is he committed to it? how much is he willing to kind of level up everyone else around him? Up in Minnesota, the expectations are much different than they were in Arizona. Let's just call it the way it is.
Yeah, sure.
They're really expected to challenge to win the North and win the NFC and get to Super Bowls. That's what people expect out of this team because of what Kevin's done. Now, Kyler is right in the spotlight.
Look, we've seen quarterback reclamation stories more improbable than this. I know that's a double negative, but you know what I'm saying. Who saw Baker Mayfield coming? Who saw Sam Darnold coming? Quite a few others. Could Kyler Murray be the next? Let me get to the next what say Lou. The Kansas City Chiefs play the 5th hardest schedule. So if I were to say they're going to miss the playoffs again, what say Lou?
I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs. I think this team's going to look different, especially in the first, let's just say the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season. This is going to be a run-centric football team now. Eric Bieniemy, remember, he's back. Patrick coming off the ACL. Kenneth Walker, Emmett Johnson, who they drafted out of Nebraska. They've got a two-headed monster now at the running back position. They are going to try and dominate the line of scrimmage, take some pressure off of Patrick, and hope that this defense, with all of the weapons that they have acquired on that side, and yeah, I said defensive weapons, when you think of guys like Mansour Delane and R. Mason Thomas and Peter Woods, those 3 kids in particular have to show up. Spags has to get the most out of them. I think they'll win differently, but I think they're still going to win. And then when you see them in the back half of the season, that's when they take off.
Well, so Mike T, you were in here about 2 weeks ago, and we were saying, let's see when their division games are. And right off the bat, we find out they play the Broncos week 1. That probably works against the Chiefs. Why?
Because it's going to take Patrick Mahomes some time to be Superman again. Look, when you talk to players over the years, it just takes them time, especially coming off of an ACL injury. It's his left knee, it's his front leg. Now, look, Bo Nix has an injury as well, so they're dealing with some issues on the other side of the ball. But if I'm Kansas City, I want as easy a schedule as I possibly could have for the first 4 to 6 weeks. Lou laid out all the changes they made, but for Patrick Mahomes from the neck up, when you talk to players, they really don't feel like they're back greeny until they've been hit several times and get off the deck.
So that schedule is interesting, and Bart, you opened the show with it this morning.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a division where there's no layups. Now, you talk about, okay, well, we need to support our quarterback with a run game, and we need to support with great defense. What team in that division is more equipped to do that than the Denver Broncos? I understand that Bo Nix is coming off of injury, but so is Patrick Mahomes. And we talk about the front leg. I remember going against Carson Palmer when he hurt his knee. I remember going against Tom Brady to off his knee. Patrick Mahomes is going to have, it's going to take a lot of guts for him to put that plant leg there. And as a defense, now we know we have an immobile quarterback. So now we're going to do things like not cover the edges because we know he ain't going to run. He's not going to trust it. How quickly can either one of those quarterbacks in that division trust the injury that they're coming back from? I'm going to blitz right up the middle and land and put bodies at that front knee.
I'm just saying, look, the way in which they attack those now is going to look different. He doesn't have to be Superman anymore. That's why they brought Eric back. But they don't want to attack the same way because they can attack the same way because it's not getting them the benefits that they want anyway at this point.
But they're not the best team in that division as far as the talent standpoint. We're not even talking about the Chargers, but let's just go back to now Bo Nix having Jalen Waddle. You know, the deficiencies, but they didn't have anybody that can throw the ball down the field. Now they have that. So I don't think that the Kansas City Chiefs are the more talented team within that division. I would say arguably the third.
Look, they've been asking their quarterback to